octopus. I think I would cry more than ever. Hello book lovers, my name is Alan and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to do a reaction video and I'm going to read negative reviews of some of my favorite classic books. And I chose 5 books for this video. So let's do this. The first book that I will start with is 1984 by George Orwell. And this is a dystopian novel about a man, Winston Smith, who is living under a totalitarian regime and his response to the restrictions imposed by Big Brother. So let's see some reviews. Okay, let's see the first review. The reason I rated it so low was that it's an utterly depressing book. I was sad for 2 weeks after reading it. I'm sorry to hear that, but I don't think that's a valid reason to rate it so low. And let's continue. That being said, I think it's an absolutely amazing, powerful book. And I think the political commentary is dead on. Okay, you change your thing. It is critical to be aware how a government could become so overwhelmingly totalitarian. One line that sticks with me to this day, and I read the book 6 or 7 years ago, was something about how the general populace was too busy listening to and singing popular music, and in other ways dealing with popular society, to even realize, much less care, what the government was doing. But I still hated it. Okay, so I'm not sure if she liked it or not, but in the end she still hated it. So I believe her last word. Okay, so let's go to the next review. My rating is simply based on how much I liked reading this book. I hated it. That doesn't mean it isn't a good book, I suppose. I could barely finish it because I was crying too much. Were you crying too much because it wasn't a good book? Or because the story was depressing? Okay, next review. This is one of the worst books I've read in my entire life. Why? First of all, it doesn't even make sense. I am a skilled reader and I can't even out what British vocab and weird phrases Orwell uses to describe the story. Second of all, it has absolutely nothing to do with the real year of 1984. So if you're a history nerd like me and want to read all about the age of Walkmans and Atari, I assure that this book will not give it to you. Of course, because this book was written in 1947, 1948, so it won't talk about Walkmans and Atari. Third of all, and this doesn't really count as a good enough reason, it's just a little side note. It has inappropriate content. Bam, 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 bam. It's not like the bad content you would read in books now. It's uncomfortable and quite disgusting and not fun to read. So if I had just read the older version of this book or something, that version sucked. I do not recommend this book to anyone. Okay, so you gave some really valid reasons why we shouldn't read this book. Whoop! After this review, I don't want to read again 1984. No more. No. 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 Next. I did not like this book either. It was ridiculous. I will never ever read this again. I had a literal headache after reading a section. When I found out that the book was divided into sections and then subsections, I nearly lost my mind. Where's my mind? Where's my mind? My best friend, who is a year older than me, couldn't decipher the intricate workings of George Orwell's writing. I believe if I was stuck in Winston's predicament, I would have denounced eating, reading, drawing, sleeping, and my family if it really came down to it. Do it. Do it. Do it now. Having my biggest fear dangled in my face would easily accomplish that. I believe so. My fear is octopus. Octopus. Even a picture reduces me to tears. I can't even look at the marine bio textbook because there is an octopus on it. I could not survive in that world. In one word to describe this book: detestable. Imagine what would happen if 1984 would have a picture of an octopus on it. Or even Orwell decided to title it Octopus. I think I would cry more than ever. Next. What the fuck did I just read? No offense, but what was wrong with the writer? Do not get me wrong. It is a well-written book. But there is always a but. I don't even know how to describe this fucked up shit. I don't usually curse this much. Of course, you only curse when you're reading a bad book. Or you're cursing this much only when you're reading a bad book. Why will someone imagine the future like this? What hole did this writer crawl out of that made him that messed up? I am a very optimistic person. I imagine a really beautiful future, and I hate pessimistic people. George Orwell is such a pessimist bastard. How dare you? How dare you? You shouldn't have written this book, George Orwell. You're a pessimist. George Orwell, you were a good writer. But fuck yourself wherever the hell you are. Okay. The next reviews that we will read are about the Odyssey by Homer. And this book is about Odysseus' journey back home to Ithaca to see his wife and his son. After the Trojan War, Odysseus was punished by the gods to to wander for 20 years before he can return home. So let's see some reviews. This book is absolutely atrocious. Many literary geniuses would strongly disagree. Definitely. But they are stupid, of course, and have never actually finished the book. You're totally right. No one has ever finished it ever in the history of the world. This book sucks. This book sucks. You haven't finished the book, so next. To be quite honest, I hated this book. Not only because of the language, but because the story was confusing and boring. Do not read this book unless you want to end your life. Period. Okay. There is some good criticism here, because actually sometimes books like the Iliad and the Odyssey were very confusing in the sense that they introduce a lot of characters, and sometimes you can forget what's happening with the plot. But I don't want to end my life. Period. Next. DNF. Nope. Either I am too dumb to read the Odyssey, most likely I did not say anything, or I need to try to read it instead of listen to it on audiobook. But I swear to heaven above, I feel like people read a book, and if it's as boring or confusing as possible, they think, let's put this on the classics list. Yes, that's what they think. Okay, this book is confusing, this is boring, and this is written so badly that no one can understand it. This is a classic. Next. According to what I know about Odysseus, I believe that he should not be in the Hero Hall of Fame nomination committee. He killed innocent people, cheated on his wife, and ate his friends. I believe that says it all about who Odysseus really is. Those are some fair points. I didn't know that he was in the Hero Hall of Fame nomination committee. But if that's correct, then we should exclude him. No mercy. Odysseus, you're out. Another favorite classic book is The Dialogues of Plato, a collection of dialogues written by Plato, in which Socrates is the main character. And each dialogue deals with a different philosophical issue, like what is love, what is good government, and so on. So let's look at some reviews. The only dialogue within this book that I enjoy is the apology, mostly because Socrates dies at the end. It is like buying a front row ticket to NASCAR, and you know Jeff Gordon is going to crash and die in that race. At least he enjoyed one dialogue. Socrates is dead. Long live Socrates. Next. lame bargain basement book. Save your dollar. Tired of Socrates going around meddling in everyone's business. It's actually kind of fun watching him generate a long list of frenemies throughout the city. If he were around today, he would get a dinger in the left eye every time he approached someone to quiz them. Put a suck in already. Luckily, science has come a long way, and much of what was known to Plato, Socrates, is known today. Sure, you can put yourself in the context of the times and give them the benefit of the doubt, but too predictable. You can see them a mile off setting up the strawman, then taking him down. Still, worth reading, just be acquainted with the content in order to be well read. I agree with him related to what Socrates was doing. I found Socrates most of the time when I was reading the dialogues. I was finding him a little bit annoying that he was always arguing with people. But at the end of his review, he says still worth reading just to be acquainted with the content in order to be well read. So what can I say? Read it. Don't save your dollar. Next. Still reading this, but I think I'm going to need some help from some philosophy experts on this one. Not that Plato's ideas are difficult to understand. They aren't at all. But because I'm having a hard time figuring out why this math of logic, chopping and strange cultural assumption forms one of the bedrock texts of Western thought. That's right, I just bagged on Plato. Try to stop me. I think you should ask Alfred North Whitehead, who said that Western philosophy is just a footnote to Plato. Ask him and maybe he will give you an answer. A classic book that I love to read on Christmas Day is A Christmas Carol. And it tells the story of a mean, selfish and greedy man named Ebenezer Scrooge. He hates Christmas, he hates his family, and he hates everything in general. But on Christmas Day, he is visited by the ghosts of Christmas. And that's when everything changes. So let's read some reviews. OMG. Can this book stop annoying me? Charles Dickens just thinks he's special because he writes 10 million adjectives for each word. If you take them away, it's only like 4 words. Even those words are bad. Overall, one of the worst books you can read. I don't care if it's one book you have to read once in your life. Don't read it. It's bad. So bad. I understand his or her concern, but actually the book is very short and I like Charles Dickens' writing. So read the book. It's good. So good. Let's go to the next. So boring. My book club fell apart reading this. We thought it was a relevant choice for our December book, but this was the last book we read and discussed together. Amen. I'm sorry to hear that this book had a disastrous impact on your book club. In nomine Patri et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Next. Complete letdown. The Muppets were never even mentioned in the book. I did not think about that. Last but not least, we're going to read negative reviews about the portrait of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. And the novel is about Dorian Gray and this portrait of himself that he keeps in his home and how it changes his life. So let's look at some reviews. The picture of Dorian Gray is a classic. Oscar Wilde is in top form. But I hated it. I hated Lord Henry for his influence on that sweet boy Dorian Gray. As I said, Oscar Wilde is brilliant. So it wasn't his writing, nor was the latent homosexuality that laced through the novel, nor the narcissism also laced throughout the storyline. How about the hedonism? No. For me, my dislike of the novel rests solely on the character of Lord Henry. Okay, everyone is entitled to their opinion. But I think you cannot dislike a book solely on the character of Lord Henry. Period. Next. Like a slick illustration, it is an effective display of Wilde's particular style and genre. I felt an almost postmodern consciousness while reading it, of its cliches, and yet it's apparent that this work is one of those that did define those cliches in their heyday. I'm not sure what I felt about it. It is more like having walked down a certain path. The feelings I absorbed there, whether tempered by my particular biases of perception, still remain inside my mind. I think so as well, because I did not understand anything that you said in this review. Sorry. Next. I was reading this for book club, or else I probably wouldn't have finished it. Besides being boring, I just didn't seem to agree with the points that Wilde was making. And Dorian Gray's actions seemed rash and unnecessary to me. Yes, he sold his soul. But for what? It all just seemed so pointless. Books like these are probably the reason I was not an English major. Reviews like this are the reason why I'm not an army major. Deep. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit that like button, add a comment, and subscribe to my channel to see new videos every week. See ya!